Good morning. Or actually, it's afternoon now, Eastern time, 3 minutes ago. Just waiting. We have 15 participants. And I think that is long enough. Let's go ahead and jump in and get started. I came back to where we were last time, which is the Module 2 notes. If y'all can, I'm curious if you can go to your participant window and give me a thumbs up if you did all of the replets that were assigned last time. In the participant window, and keep the thumb up so I can see. You didn't do them, Nate?
I tried to do them. I did a few of them, but I wasn't able to do all of them because every time I would try and update it and run it, it would like crash.
Okay. So yeah, if anyone has questions, and don't worry about, maybe you think I'm taking my time, but see, if you come in here and you go to Slack and you come post a question in here, notice I go to the Replit channel and I say, no, I'll put here, hi all, question on Replit number 4. My program is doing such and such. This is just a test message. Come do that. How can I fix it, right? Send that message and people will respond, whether it be me or others, right? I promise y'all that students love to go respond to other students. That's their opportunity to flex, right? And so when you don't complete things successfully, don't be shy and come ask questions, and you'll see that the community of learners here, the attendees, will absolutely be here to help one another.
All right. Well,
So unmute your mic. If you ever see that I'm muted, like just now, unmute your mic and tell me, okay? Because I was not looking at the hands just now. So thank you. Can y'all unmute your mic? Ibrahim, are you able to unmute your mic?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so if that happens and I'm talking and it's muted, don't wave. I happen to see you. You got lucky because you're one of the 5 people that are on my screen that I can see. But don't wave. Just unmute your mic and say, hey, that's a good time to interrupt, because you're not interrupting because you can't hear me. So let me know. So let me back up. Pardon that. So here, I said I wanted to remind you of the assignment operator. That is the assignment operator. And by the way, I'm not looking at the chat window. So that is the assignment operator. And with that assignment operator, we start by looking at the right side of our assignment statement. And on the right side of that assignment statement, we first evaluate all of that. And then after we evaluate all of that and we come up with an answer, then we save that into whatever's on the left side of that assignment statement. So we save it into that variable that is on the left side of the assignment statement. Okay. So also just for your knowledge and to be aware of that in Python, you can actually, in many languages, you can do many assignments all in the same line, which is kind of funky, but you can. So what this does is it takes one, we start on the right side, we take 1 and we assign it into k. So now k has the value of 1. And then we take whatever's in k, which is 1, and we assign it into j. So now j has the value of 1. And then we take whatever's in j, which again is 1, and we assign it into I. So now I has the value of 1. And that would be the same as doing that. So assignment statements, just some comments. Make sure that you can't edit a variable until you first create that variable. So I'm going to come to my module 2 notes. I'm going to the very bottom, and I'm just typing these comments. I'm going to come up here so you can see it at the top of the screen. Assignment revisited. Okay, and you should type these same comments as I'm typing them, the same code within your module 2 notes. So if I were to say, W equals 5, okay? And then what if later I want to add 3 to W? We haven't covered this. We now want to add 3 to W to get 8, right? 5 plus 3 is 8. How do we do that? If I say W equals 3, well, that's assigning 3 into W. So now W is 3. That's not what we want. We really want to take W and don't type this, previous value of W plus 3. Well, how do we do the previous value of W? Like the 5, we want to get 5 plus 3. Well, this is the first time you've maybe seen this, but we can in fact write that line of code. What does this line of code do? Well, someone unmute your mic and tell me, or let me ask my daughter, Mariam, when we have an assignment statement, where do we start reading with our eyes, on the left or on the right?
Right.
We start on the right side. So when we come to this right side, look above. What is the value of W when we look at the right side? Right now, don't try to evaluate and solve the final answer here. Just tell me, we're starting at line 102. What is W? Anyone, unmute, quick.
5.
W is 5. And so here, when we start on the right side of this assignment, right here, the computer says, what is W? The answer, W is 5. So 5 plus 3 will be 8. So this line of code says we start on the right of the assignment. W has the value of 5 in it. 5 plus 3 equals 8. So the 8 is assigned into W. Okay, I know that's maybe overkill, but that's the first time you've seen the idea of changing, like adding something to a variable. Okay, so here, what if I were to say count equals count plus 10? Now that's going to give me an error right now. Can someone tell me why this? Ibrahim, can you lower your hand, please? Can someone tell me why that is going to give me an error? Feel free just to chime in.
That's gonna give you an error because you didn't specify count beforehand.
Because right now the computer is going to say, sure, I'll calculate count for you. So it looks to the right of the assignment and it says count is going to be equal to, it looks to the right and it says it's going to be count plus 10. And then it's going to say, oh, wait, snap. I don't know what count is. We haven't initialized count, right? So that would give you an error because you haven't initialized count. So here, make sure you initialize your variables. Okay, I'm gonna comment this line. And I'll say that line would produce an error because count was not initialized. And I know I mentioned last time I type fast. I encourage y'all, those who are taking this seriously and you really want to learn this, you need to really make your set of notes the same as mine. And because this is already a condensed or concentrated boot camp, like if I was teaching this to even the college students, I'll be pausing here and giving them time to type all this up to make sure that they keep up with the same pace. But we don't have that luxury here. So I encourage you, those of you who really want to be serious and learn Python, take advantage of this opportunity. Spend an hour, spend 1 hour, about 2 or 3 hours after our boot camp lesson every Tuesday and Thursday. Go to YouTube, go to the video that will be uploaded and pause it and type all the comments that I'm putting here. So your notes match up with the notes that I'm typing live. So that line of code would produce an error because again, count was not initialized. So we can fix that by, what if I said count equals 7, and then now I say count equals count plus 10. So someone else who's not spoken, tell me what is count going to be now if I wanted to print count. Unmute your mic, someone, and tell me what is count going to be.
7.
Perfect. Thank you. Count is now going to be 7. Okay? Because this is saying, no, I just said perfect. I was not even listening. Sorry, I don't know who said that, but no, that's not correct. But maybe my question wasn't clear. After line 116, what is count going to be?
17.
It's going to be 17. Thank you, Justin. Because count is 7 right here on line 115. But on line 116, what are we doing? We're saying, well, let's start at the right side of the assignment. So what is count right here that I'm highlighting? Count is 7, and then 7 plus 10 is 17. So I want to come here. I'm going to make I don't know if I have a garbage program yet. I don't remember if I did. Bear with me. Courses. Thought I had this under bootcamp. Where's this saved? Courses, bootcamp. Yep. So open courses, bootcamp. Cool. I do have a garbage. So for example, if I were to say, again, count equals 7 and then count equals count plus 10. And if we wanted to run that, okay, or debug that and see what happens. So when I debug it, the first thing is the computer sees count is 7. So it's going to save a variable on the right. If you notice on the right side of the screen, it says count equals 7. And now when we get to this line 2, the computer sees that we have, sorry, I hit the wrong button. When we get to line equals 2, the computer sees that we have this assignment statement. So it's going to start on the right side and start the evaluation. Count plus 10. So it says, well, count is 7, and 7 plus 10 is 17. And then we take 17 and we assign it into count. So now if you look on the right side of my screen, count is now 17. Okay, so want to make sure that that is clear and how we actually modify our variables. So swapping two values, we have a lot of little things to cover today. Swapping two values. This is a very famous example that is shown in every single programming language. Swapping two values. What if I gave you E equals 13 and F equals 80? And I would like to swap those two values, meaning after I swap them, I want E to be equal to 80 and I want F to be equal to 13. And for clarity, I mean, someone might say, well, why don't you just write F equals 80 and write E equals 13? I don't want to actually restate that. I like what, and again, E might not be 13. E could be 17. E could be some value. I'm just saying, for example, what if it's 13? So how can I swap those two values? I'll tell you, and someone might say, well, let's start by saying E equals F. And if I say E equals F, what happens? I'm taking what's on the right side of the assignment. So I'm taking what's inside F, which is 80. And then I am going to save that 80 into E. So if I annotate my screen here, Think of it this way as here's your E and here's your F. Okay, this is F. E and F. E has the value of 13 and F has the value of 80. If I say this line of code right here, E equals F, again, I'm taking what's on the right, which is F, which is 80, and I'm saying save that 80 into E. So the result of line 124 is E will become 80. We're halfway there. That's great. But what just happened in the process? We just lost the 13. 13's gone. So that's a fail. 13's gone because we want to be able to save 13 into F afterwards. So what's the solution? What do you think we need in order to make this happen? Someone tell me. Just raise your hand or unmute your mic and tell me. Take a guess on what we might need. I heard something.
Variable.
We're going to need another variable because if I would like to do that, the reason I show you with this example, I didn't make this big enough, but here, let's make a bigger space. Here's E, here's F again. If this was 13 initially and this is 80, well, this line of code is going to result in the 80 from the F is going to get written in the E, and so the 13 is going to be erased, right? Now E is 80. So if on the next line of code, if we want to say F equals E, well, the 13's gone, right? And so the idea is in programming, if you want to do this, you really need a third variable, and the common variable name is called temp. So here's a third variable, temp. And the idea is before I do this line of code on 124, before I do that line of code, so before I take the 80 and I put it here, thus erasing the 13 or overriding the 13, before I do that, I first need to protect the 13. I need to take that 13 and save it over here into temporary storage. So temp is just a variable, okay? I save the 13 temporarily. Then after I do that, so I save the 13 here. Then after I do that, then I take the 80 from the F and I assign it into the E. So this becomes 80. And now the final statement is I need to take that 13 and put it into the F. And then the 13 comes here. Raise your hand if that makes sense, please, in the participant window. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. I need some just visual feedback because I can't see everyone. So how do we actually do that in code is, I'm going to leave the annotations there for a moment on the screen. I need to, again, what was the first step? Someone tell me. I need to take what and save it to what? Anyone just unmute and tell me? Ayub, you have your hand up?
Wait,
If you don't,
you just, I'm not sure about this one. Wait, can you repeat the question?
yeah, no, you can put your hand down. I wasn't sure if you were trying to answer my question or not.
Okay.
So can you put your hand down on the participant window? Perfect. So you can go ahead and, if anyone, my question is, someone answer, what's the first thing we need to do? Just say it in English. Don't give me the line of code. The first thing I need to do is I need to save what into what?
You need to save E into temp.
I need to save E into temp. Perfect. Thank you, Charles. I need to save the value that is in E, which is that 13, into temp. So I'm going to put a line of code. Save E into temp. So how do I save E into temp? Someone actually tell me. Mariam, you tell me. What's the line of code? You need to learn how to unmute quickly.
You should first save E into
where's-
temp. So temp equals E.
Temp equals E. Perfect. Thank you. I need to save E into temp. So that's temp equals E. So lower your hand, please, Mariam. Okay. We want to save temp into E. And so now, after we save temp into E, what is the next step? We want to do what? Save what into what? Just in English. Anyone, unmute, please.
You want to put F into E.
Save F into E, which is this line of code. Thank you, Charles. Save F into E. And then finally, someone give me in English, what do we need to do? Someone else. We need to save what into what? Just in English. Tell me the line. I mean, tell me what to do.
Do we put temp into F?
Perfect. Finally, we put temp into F. So how do we write that line of code? How do we put temp into F?
You put F equals temp.
Perfect. Perfect. We say F equals temp. Okay. That is the famous example of swapping two values within any language. So here, this is how you do that. Usually that's the same within Python, within Java, C, C++, Python. It's the same exact logic. The recognition that we need a third variable, temp, because otherwise we're going to lose that value. And Python has a much easier, much cooler way of doing this. But I first like to always teach this because that's how you do it in almost any language. And even in Python, it still works. Okay, the recognition that you need a third variable to make that happen. So we understand that. So now let me go ahead and show you the easy way that Python does it for you. And this is really what you should always do. In Python, we can swap two values much easier using what is called simultaneous assignment. And in this case, it's just simple. It's simply one line of code. E comma F equals F comma E. Done. That's a lot easier. You might say, why do we even look at the other one? Again, for the reason already mentioned, that at first it's a good problem solving practice problem of how do I swap to, oh, I need a third variable. It's a good opportunity to practice a small problem solving example. But beyond that is, it's what most languages do anyway for swapping two values, the two values within two variables. But in Python, you can just do that. So that swaps the two values, okay? And I think there's very little even explanation needed. Usually when you teach that, people are like, oh, that just makes sense. Take whatever's, in these two here and assign them in these two, but in that reverse order. Cool. Swapping two values, done. I'm not going to recompute that one. I wanted to say something on constants. There's a lot of little things I have to go through, pardon me, and before I can give you all a problem to go solve. And so here, something else. The next concept is constants, okay? Most, or at least many programming languages, yes, Ibrahim, you have a question. I saw your hand goes up.
Is that simultaneous assignment limited to two variables, or could you use more than two?
You can use more than two.
Very cool. You
can use more than two. And I'll show you the example that I just skipped over was the one we did last time. If you were to ask the user, enter the three numbers to calculate the average of three numbers, if you look at the screen, where last time we asked them, enter the first number on one line, enter the second number on the next line, enter the third number on the next line. We could have said, enter the three numbers separated by commas. But that's not common to do, but it's still just an example to show you that we could have saved them all on one line. But that's not a cool thing. I know you like cool things. That is not a cool thing to do. The cool things will come later. But just answering the question, yes, you can in fact do more than two variables at a time. So constants, many languages, or I'd say most languages, have the ability to, you can program constants. Well, what is a constant, first of all? A constant, like in mathematics, would be pi. Pi is in fact a constant. You don't change the value of pi, right? So if you were to say as a variable, pi equals 3.14159, I don't know beyond that. And then later you wanted to calculate the area. Let's say you had radius equals 8, and you wanted to calculate the area by saying area is pi r squared, so pi times r times r. Here, later in the program, of course, we're not going to say, hey, let's change the value of our radius to 10 so we can recalculate the area. And for kicks, let's change our pi to 7.45. Well, that would be silly. Pi doesn't change, right? Pi is always 3.14, right? So pi doesn't change because it's a constant in mathematics. And so how do you represent constants in programming? If this were Java, for example, you would have typed the word final beforehand, okay? If it were Java, we're not teaching you Java, but if it were Java, you would have typed the word final beforehand. In Python, and when you type the word final beforehand, if this were Java, later, if I were to try to say pi equals something else like 7.2, Java would give me an error, and Java would say, excuse me, but you told me on line 141 that pi is constant, meaning that you don't want me to allow you to ever change it later in the program. And Java would give an error. It would say, I can't change pi. And most languages will have some way of representing constants. Python does not. You can go Google and read, why does the Python developers not have constants? You can go read and tell us the answer. But Python does not have constants officially, meaning if I make this variable pi, later I can say pi equals whatever. And Python allows you to do that, which is strange because in fact there are constants, right? So like in real life, we do have some things that will remain constant. So how do you model that in your program? Well, whether it be Python or Java or C++ or C#, you're going to have constants that you're going to want to model. And all languages, for the most part, have a universal style of representing constants. Notice I said style, so it's not a requirement. So if I showed you a huge Java program with thousands upon thousands of lines, or if I showed you a C++ program with thousands upon thousands of lines, you would very easily be able to visually identify the constants in that program. Why? Because the programming style is that constants should be capitalized. So just the name of the constant itself should be capitalized. So here, by capitalizing pi, it's a cue to the reader, a visual cue that, hey, this is a variable that I never want to change. It's a constant. So in Python, we're still allowed to change it, but at least we teach you the style, which is if you have a constant, you should capitalize it. Ibrahim, your hands up. You can lower it if you don't have a question. Okay, so I'm trying to go through this as quickly as possible. Let's see, I need to talk about that and you'll see why coming up. So data types. I have like two more things to cover before I can get to an example. Data types. We have not covered data types yet because Python makes programming easy where you don't need it. You don't need to worry about it at the beginning. So data types. What do we mean by data types? If I say x equals 8, and then I say y equals 4.5. If this were, again, I'll often say C or C++ or C# or many other languages, I cannot just say x equals 8. I have to, in those other languages, I have to specify what is the type of data that I plan on saving into X. And let's even say Z equals Michael. I would need to specify the type of data I'm saving into X or Y or Z. So we can see that what am I saving into X here? It's a number. What am I saving into Y? It's a number. And what am I saving into Z? Well, it's a string of characters. We told you that a string is, in programming, a string is one or more or zero or more characters from your keyboard, okay? So this is a string of characters, and we know it's a string because it's contained, it's enclosed within quotation marks. So here, specifically, if I were to ask you, as elementary school, what would we have called 8? Someone unmute your mic. 8, what kind of number is 8 from elementary school? Anyone? This is supposed to be an easy question.
An even number?
It is even, but compare 8 to 4.5, or yeah, well, someone else. It's definitely an
Is
even
it
number.
an
Whole
integer?
number?
It's a whole number or an integer, as someone stated. That's what I was fishing for. And what is 4.5? It's certainly not an integer. What is it?
Decimal.
A decimal.
Decimal number, right? A real number. So let's say a decimal number. So this is what y'all have learned. So 8 is an integer. And so if this were Java or C, or C++, you would actually type this. If this were, again, C# or C or Java, that line of code is the same in all three languages. Int x equals 8. What this really says is, hey computer, I have this variable x. It's going to store an integer, and the value it's going to store is 8. And here I would say, hey computer, I have this variable z. The data it's going to store is a string of keyboard characters. And what it's actually going to store is MICHEAL. Okay. And then finally here, I have this variable y, and it's going to store 4.5, which you said is a decimal number. So that may have worked, right? So, but it doesn't. So you actually, in like Java, you could say float, or in Python, you could say float. What is float? This is a new term for you, okay? Float is floating point number. Just know that float means decimal. It's a decimal number, okay? So this is other languages. This is not Python, this is other languages. But why is that important? Is you need to know what is data type. And we'll talk about why more, but it's the type that is stored, the type of data that you're storing in X. Well, Python is unique because in other languages, if I said int x equals 8, later I could not say x equals, I could say later, I could say x equals 10. I could change x because it's a variable. I could then say x equals 13. I could change it. That's allowed. But I could not say x equals 4.2 because the computer would shout at me and say, excuse me, didn't you already tell me x is an integer? Why are you changing it to now a decimal number? Okay. Or I could not say x equals Bob. Computer would say, excuse me, you told me x is an integer. That's other languages. Python, though, is unique in that you can change the type. I can say x is 8, then I can say, you know what, x is in fact Bob. Python has no problem with that, okay? And we're gonna talk more about data type as we go, but that's important. Remind you, what is an integer, and to talk about a floating point number. This slide is very important, even though you might think this is not important, it's pretty obvious. Well, let's look at it. I hope, dear Lord, I hope I do not need to talk in this class about what does that mean? Or what does that mean? Or what does this mean? Or this. I've already told you that the shift 8, the asterisk is multiplication. I don't need to talk about those things, okay? If this were kindergarten, I would have to probably explain what is this, what is multiplication, but y'all understand multiplication. And you all understand, believe it or not, all of this, but we're gonna have to talk about it anyway. This is pretty straightforward. This is exponent. It's just an exponent operation in Python, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Let me go to annotate, clear annotations, then hit stop. So if I come to Python and I type math operators. So again, if I wanted to just print directly 2 asterisk asterisk 3, that will give me, this gives 8, okay? So if I were to run this, where are we at? Oh, so I typed a Java comment, that's so funny. I go back and forth, 2 forward slashes, by the way, in Java, that's a comment. I switched languages just now automatically. Integer value, what is your age? Oh no, I forgot we didn't, what happened up here? Pardon me.
You didn't define. Oh yeah.
Yep. So this is what happens when you have a lot of stuff you have to go through. Just to show you an example, please enter integer value. This, what is your age? 13. Oh no.
Yeah.
This is taking too long just to show you an example. Integer value 3, age, this. Okay, woohoo, we finally got to 8. So 2 raised to the 3 is 8. I'm gonna actually code these up in the, or run them in the garbage program I have. So I always keep a garbage program where I can just quickly run stuff, okay? I encourage y'all to do the same. So I keep a program called garbage.py just to quickly test stuff, so to avoid what I just did. So here, math operators, if I, 2 raised to the 3, that's just gonna give me 8. 2 raised to the 4 is gonna give me 16. That's how you get exponents, okay? What if I wanted to do division? So if I wanted to print, how about if I want to print 19 divided by, what do I want to divide it by? How about divide it by 3? If I did that on a calculator, what's the answer going to be? 19 divided by 3. Can someone tell me the answer?
It's like 6.3.
Yeah, 6.33333, right? That's the answer, 6.33333. That's calculator, okay? So what I want to point out for you, and this is important to write, is this gives you 6.33333. And as a comment, I'll call it the single forward slash gives you floating division. We call it floating point division. So it gives you traditional calculator division. So this is traditional calculator division. Why do I make that distinction? Because what about what you learned in elementary school? And you know what? I have 2 minutes left. I can cover this in 2 minutes. So what about what we learned in elementary school? If I have, what was it, 19? 19 divided by 3. What's the answer here? Someone tell me, what do I put up top? Quickly.
6.
I put a 6. Thank you, Charles. And then I get 18, and I have a remainder of 1. All of y'all know this, and in fact, this might surprise you, but y'all can solve the following problems that we're going to practice a lot easier than college students. Not to disparage college students, but they haven't done this type of division in so long, they don't even think like that. And so what we're about to cover confuses college students for a few minutes easily. And this should be quite smooth for all of you. Well, in programming, believe it or not, we're going to use this a lot. And we're going to use this a lot. So it's not as common in programming to really need to know what is 19 divided by 3 exactly, 6.333. More common in programming is the desire to want to know, I want to know what is this exact answer here and what is this exact answer here, meaning I want the whole number 6 and the remainder of 1. Well, to get the whole number of 6 in programming, it's 19 forward slash, but not one forward slash, it's 2 of them. So 19, 2 forward slashes divided by 3 will give you 6. It will give you the whole number. And how do I get the remainder? Well, the remainder is, we say, well, do the 19 divided by 3 and give me the remainder. Well, how do I do that? It's using this operation. We call it modulus or mod, okay? That's gonna give me the 1. So when I hit stop here on the annotations, and let's go code this real quick. So if I were to print 19, 2 forward slashes, 3, that's going to gives us 6. And then if I print 19 mod 3, so 19, you might say percent, it's called mod, gives us the remainder, which is 1, okay? And check out that answer as we run it. So that is very important. I'm going to come put that over here, and you're going to see when we come back on the next session today, we're going to do several problems using mod. We're about to end, so let's end gracefully so we don't get kicked out. I'm going to go make a new session in Slack.